Well, Kyle, 7:22, and here we are at Eldora Speedway tonight. Rumble Mumble, episode number 3. And hard to believe that 3 weeks have gone by so far. Tonight, we have Kyle Dager with me. I'm Larry Bose, and our special guest, Tony Stewart, is on the grounds right now, and he's a little bit preoccupied right now doing some well, let's just say testing, and he'll be out here with us shortly. So we're looking forward to having Tony join us here in just a few moments. So the Rumble Mumble, created by Kurt Rockman, and tell us a little bit about the success of it so far, Kyle.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Obviously the fan vote that we had to make the name, that reached thousands of people. We had hundreds of people commenting and sharing that. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously the first 3 weeks here have been, pretty huge for us. I think the first week we had over 2,000 or 3,000 viewers. Last week was just as good, so I'm pretty excited for this week.
Yeah, opening week we had the founder of the Rumble, Tony Barhorse, join us, and Tony did a great job from the Brookville Library. Last week we went up to the Hyatt Place in Fort Wayne, where Larry Joe Schroff joined us, and Larry did a great job. And it was interesting. I didn't know, but he doesn't really race during the summer. He saves it just for the Rumble, and that was kind of interesting how he can look so comfortable out there only racing once a year.
Yeah, it made it sting just that much more, knowing that he goes out there and beats me every year by that much, and knowing he only races a few times a year.
And speaking of only once a year, Tony just comes there once a year at the Rumble, doesn't do a whole lot of midget racing in the summer, and we'll talk to him a little bit about that car and the history of the car and everything else. So we're looking forward to that. Again, Jason Deach, the sponsor of the Rumble in Fort Wayne. This is the 22nd annual event coming up December 27th and 28th at the War Memorial Coliseum and Expo Center in Fort Wayne. So with big shout out to Jason Deach, over 350 trailers in Edgerton, Ohio. No matter what size, shape you need, just stop up. I'm sure there's something there that can fulfill your needs.
Yeah, and like Larry said, Tony's going to be coming on here in a little bit. I see we already have quite a few people watching in here. So if you guys want, send in some questions, say hi, and we'll see if we can get a chance to read some of them tonight.
Yeah, we're on Tony time right now. Anybody that knows Tony knows that he kind of goes by his own watch. It's a little bit different than most people's, but so we may end up going a little bit longer than 22 minutes tonight, and we'll see what happens. The Rumble in Fort Wayne, we've already touched on the midgets running in there. We had Larry Joe Schroff last week with the 600cc, which run both winged and non-winged, but we also have the go-karts and the quarter midgets. So in the coming weeks, we'll be reaching out to some of our go-kart competitors. I think one interesting prospect would be John Ivey from Fremont, Ohio, as he's run the karts and the 600s, and pretty unbeatable right now in the 600s.
It's pretty timely that you just said that. He actually just now commented, "Hi guys."
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, Johnny, get ready. We'll be coming to Fremont, Ohio shortly. Next week, we're kind of excited. We're going to be in Noblesville, Indiana, and be talking to Randy Burrow. And again, here we are, one time a year. Randy has like 3 or 5 midgets he just stores in the barn. He only brings them out one time a year, and that's for the Rumble. So it's going to be interesting to talk to Randy. Of course, his primary driver, Billy Weiss, one of the strongest competitors in the Rumble. And when we go into our stats tonight, we'll see on that. So looking forward to seeing Randy next week.
Yeah, we have a few more hellos. Brad McLeod says, "Hi, Larry."
Who's that?
Brad McLeod.
Oh, okay.
Kenny D. Myers. So we got a few people coming in saying hi.
Well, I hear the four-wheelers, so I think that we'll be joined here very shortly. And speaking of which, we haven't talked too badly about Tony, so we'll get started. Tony, have a seat. Welcome to the Rumble Mumble, and we haven't really told people why you're here at Eldora Speedway. I'm sure the cat will get out of the bag pretty soon, but
well, I have some explaining to do. Obviously, why do I have a uniform?
Yeah, why don't you let the cat? I've already got text messages. Somebody
drove by a minute ago.
Yes. So what's going on?
Myself and my 3/4 midget driver, Ronnie Combs. I've been wanting for I don't know, how long have you and I been talking about?
Pretty much
try to
since the
figure this out.
inception. This is a 10th year now.
And I've wanted to bring our 3/4 midgets over here and see size-wise if it would be close to where we could run 3/4 midgets, 600s, 600 micros, outlaw carts. So today was finally the day that your schedule worked, my schedule worked, Ronnie's schedule worked, and so we brought him over, and literally we both only ran 2 runs, and we're like super excited and stoked about the results of what we learned.
Well, what I'm super excited about, and all you go-karters, don't worry, it doesn't look like the shape of the go-kart track is going to change at all.
Yes,
so we're really happy because we're getting like 200 go-karts every Sunday.
And that's what, that's why I was late. That's what we were doing. I got out in the car and wanted to just measure some stuff, because that's the one thing that I did not want to do is disrupt the go-kart side of it. I wanted to try to figure out if we could widen it, but widen it on the outside to where it didn't change the inside dimension where the go-karts would run. So it looks like, I think we're going to have to keep looking at it, but I think, from what we just measured and everything, I think
looks
it's
doable.
I think there's one, the backs, well, I don't know, I guess it's your front stretch.
Yeah.
Which would probably have to become the back stretch.
Right.
It is
butts up against an 18-foot pond.
Right. So, but I think we just measured it, and I honestly think it's doable.
Okay, for those of you that are wondering what we're talking about, on the grounds of Eldora Speedway, of which Tony Stewart owns, 10 years ago, he gave us a permission to go ahead and build a go-kart track, and it's called Little Eldora Speedway. It's on the northeast corner of the property, and it actually, ironically, Tony, is very much similar to the Rumble.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that we didn't know, and it's hard to it's hard because we don't always know. Rushville, Indiana is kind of the home for the 3/4 midgets in Indiana, and it's a really good size racetrack. I mean, they run a lot of quarter-mile tracks. They run Brownstown, Indiana, North Vernon, Warsaw, trying to think where else they run, but they're all dirt tracks, but that's about as big as they get as a typical quarter-mile track. But Rushville's like a 5th mile, and it's really a perfect size. And the gear that we actually ran at Rushville on Labor Day is the gear that we had in the car for the test, and it was just hitting the rev limiter on the entry to both straightaways. So I think if the straightaways actually might be a little bit longer than Rushville and the corners might be a little bit tighter, but once we widen it out, it's actually going to race bigger than Rushville will. So I think it's going to be a perfect
keep
size.
tuned on that. Some exciting news coming from Little Eldora Speedway. Welcome to the Rumble Mumble. It's our weekly show celebrating the 22nd anniversary of the Rumble in Fort Wayne. And Kyle, I know you've got some stats here you want to share with us about Tony.
Yeah, so we kind of have our own in-house statistician now, Bob Corson. And Tony, you've made, obviously you're no stranger to the Rumble in Fort Wayne. You've made 20 appearances, and of those you've made 19 shows. And I think one of those was even, I think you broke during qualifying or before qualifying. And so I don't even know if we can count that one. But yeah, of those 20 appearances, you've won 9 feature wins, and you are one of only 2 drivers who have actually swept a weekend. And the only other one being Billy Weiss. And you actually have one up on him because you've done it twice.
Good. That's a good. Yeah. I like that. I like being one up on Billy all the time.
Yeah. So I guess just kind of tell us about that success, like how you've managed to be that successful in there, and
the car I drive is the Munchkin that Mike Fedorchak built back in, I believe it was 1990, and he built that when ESPN. This was long before you were born, by the way.
We kid him about that often.
It's like I'm talking to him. He's there like looking at me like, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Was there a 1990? Yeah. I read about it in history.
But they, that was kind of the big deal. I mean, it was Thursday Night Thunder. Sometimes they did it on Wednesday night a couple of years. But that was really how Jeff Gordon made his name and got his opportunity to go to NASCAR. Guys like myself, Stevie Reeves, Jason Leffler, a bunch of us made our names on ESPN like that. And so Mike built a midget from scratch, and he's brilliant. I mean, he's when he starts trying to explain things, I have to remind him he has to put it in Dr. Seuss terms and really small words and slow down when he's talking so I understand. But he built this car specifically for the speedrome, and literally to this day, I really believe engineering-wise, this car is way ahead of its time. It's not anything near like any of the midgets that are out there. And a quick story about how I ended up with that car. The late Dick Jordan, we used to play poker in his basement around December, and there were probably about 20 of us in his basement playing poker, and it was literally the night before everybody was going to Fort Wayne the next day, and I was going to go and watch. And I said, man, I'd really like to see if Mike Fedorchuk would sell the Munchkin. Well, what I didn't realize is Mike had built 3 of them, a total of 3 of them. But so we actually, Dick Jordan had his number, and so we, of course, were gambling, playing poker. So we started a pool of people that were betting to see if he would even sell the car. So whether it was yes, I would sell it, no, I wouldn't sell it. So everybody got their bets on that. And then there was another pool that what would he sell it for? What would be the purchase price? So everybody got their bets in. I got his number, dialed him up, had him on speaker, and everybody's crowded. 20 guys are crowded around one little poker table. And
again, this is the night before the race.
This is the night before the race. And so Mike answers the phone, telling him who it is, and we didn't have a lot of small talk. I mean, I basically got to the point of, would you be interested in selling the Munchkin? And so he said yes. So a bunch of guys are like, that lost, and I was like, yes. I won twice there because I at least had a shot at buying it at that point. And then I did win the second. I offered him what I thought he would sell it for, and he took my offer, and that's the price I had on the second one. So I at least won some of my money back. Some of that money went to the purchase price of the car. But the funny part was, he's like, are you wanting to try to run this tomorrow? I'm like, well, I don't know, can I? And he goes, well, it was behind a bunch of machinery in his shop.
Oh, so he hadn't been prepping it for the race.
It wasn't even remotely ready to go for the race.
Boy.
So he goes, if I can get to it and get it to the track, I don't even know if it'll run. I said, well, that's fine. I'll bring a trailer and we'll try. And if it runs, great. If it doesn't, I'll just take it home and I'll hang out, because I was going to do that anyway. So he got it out, got it to the track the next day. And literally, I love Mike to death, but I tell Mike this too. I mean, I needed a tetanus shot to get around this car. And because it had just been sitting in the barn. And literally, that was the first of those 2 nights that we swept the weekend. So we got it running, won the first night, and then came back the next night and won again with it. And I took it home. And when I never really got a chance to really look at the car. And that next week was, I think, right in between Christmas and New Year's there. And when I got the car back to the shop and my garage in Columbus, we unloaded it and we put it on stands, and I sat there on, a little creeper stool, and with all the body work off of it. And I looked at it, and I was just in shock and amazement, because I'd never seen that car up close. And to see how he engineered all that, you just felt like, wow, this is a car that was so far, this was, I don't know, how long ago was that I ran the first time?
Was that 2009 that you said you swept it? I believe that was 2009 was the first year that you swept it. So that would have been 9 years ago.
2006.
Oh, 6?
That sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you figure that car was 16 years old by then, and take the bodywork off of it and you look at it and you're like, man, this is crazy how he could figure these things out. And I mean, it's a lightweight car. It's a what they call a parallel bar car. So where the torsion bars, instead of on like a sprint car and a midget where the torsion bars run left to right, the torsion bars were actually in the bottom frame rail, and had the torsion arms came out and then had links that went up to the bottom of the axle. And so the weight of the bars were in the bottom frame rails, both front and back. And it just was amazing. I mean, that car literally has subframes. So if you need to change the motor, you literally take 16 bolts off of the front of the cage, and the whole front of the chassis comes off, and it's literally just the cage part that you sit in. There's no bars that go behind you past the back of the cage. It is literally the size of the cockpit. So it's just an amazing car, and I fell in love with it. So I bought the first car. Mike has the original car in his shop in the rafters that he built and ran the Thursday Night Thunder races. The car I own is the second of the 3 cars. And then the third car was a long wheelbase car, and he built that car because when he tried to run the short wheelbase car, he took it to IRP, and he said he about killed himself there because it was so darty because the wheelbase was short. So he built a longer wheelbase Munchkin, and that car ended up going to Michigan, and I ended up buying that car. So between Mike and I, we owned all three of the Munchkins.
Gotcha.
And then since then, Mike did a deal with Mike Stryker, and Mike has the jigs and can build as many of them as he gets orders for. So there's a lot of Munchkins out there that they get to race at Fort Wayne.
I think through the years, there was some controversy about the design of the car and everything, just like whenever anybody brings something new in. So USAC, basically the car's the same, you just had to like change the body. It's not the original Munchkin design as far as the body, but you had to make it look more like a conventional midget.
Originally it had a square fuel tank on
Right.
it, and so it had to, we put one year we kind of did what Sammy Swindell did at the Chili Bowl, and I did it for the same reason Sammy did. I did it just to get everybody stirred up, and so we bought a square fuel cell and put it on the car, and everybody threw a fit because it has to be able to hold, I don't remember how many gallons that the fuel cell has to hold. You don't have to put that much fuel in it, but it has to be capable of holding X number of gallons of fuel.
Okay.
And that cell was too small for that. So we went back, they asked us the next year to put a regular size cell on it. So we did, and that's the way, the configuration that we've been running it ever since.
So very successful at the Rumble. And then 2 years ago, you brought Rico with you. I guess you went originally as a guest to John Heidenreich, and that was how you got introduced to the Rumble. You went with him?
Well, Heidenreich, I actually drove Johnny's car one year, and those that are watching will understand when we go, I can't remember what the hotel is we all stay at, but the hotel has a bar in it. And not to say that we don't enjoy a beverage, we'll just say a beverage after the races. And I brought my 3/4 midgets for Johnny Heidenreich to drive, and another friend of mine was driving the other car. And so I wasn't driving and racing the next day, so I had a couple more beverages than I would if I was driving a race car the next day. And I was in no shape to drive a race car. And I don't think I think I laid in a pile of tires in our pit till about 2 p.m. before I finally felt like I could get up and be productive. But Johnny was leading the race in our 3/4 midget by a half a lap and hit a marker tire. And he's notorious for knocking himself out and just taking a nap for a second. So, but he went to the back, and I don't remember where he ended up finishing, but I was just irate that we lost that one because of that. But he missed the show with the full midget, with his full midget, and I can't remember who was the promoter at the time there.
But they Tony Barhorst or Jack Calabrese.
It might have been Jack. I don't know. Or it might have been Tony, but anyway, they came and they said, "Hey, if you want, we'll start you at the tail of the field as the 17th starter." And I'm like, man, I just barely got to where I could feel like I could stand up for more than 5 minutes at a time. Heidenreich's like, "Come on, do it, man, come on." I'm like, "Oh man, all right, whatever." So
This was no hot laps?
no hot laps,
Wow.
nothing. I don't remember whose uniform. I borrowed a uniform, borrowed shoes, gloves, Heidenreich's helmet, which was too big. So I put like 5 shop rags on top of my head and then put his helmet on and started at the back. And that was when it was a 100-lap feature.
Right.
And I think we got the lead on the 33rd lap.
I believe that's what the stats show, yeah.
And, but I didn't make it the other 67 laps. I think we got the lap 60 something. And on one of the restarts, I went into turn 1, and that car, the frame rails were real close to each other. So the car would twist, and it would carry the left front really high in the air. And I got just a little too close to the inside marker tire, and it clipped it, and it just tipped it over and slid to the wall. They flipped it back over, and I'm starting to unbuckle. Johnny's like, "It's okay, stay in." I'm like, I'm done. I've had enough. But I had a blast. And Fort Wayne's one of the races that I always look forward to each year. And it's not just the racing, it's the atmosphere. It's, it's kind of the last time for the year that you get to see all your friends. And there's a lot of your friends that race that, even though they're not racing, they still come hang out at Fort Wayne and come to the event. And like I said, after the races are over, we have a lot of fun too.
And the unique thing is, I know you got your start in go-karts, and go-karts are a big part of the Rumble. Do you have what do you think of those? I mean, those guys are running as fast as the midgets out there.
I mean, the guys, you can tell guys that have run indoors in go-karts before because they got headrest on the right side to lay their heads because they rip around the corners. I mean, they run faster through the corners, much faster than the midgets do, just because they're so light, they're way low to the ground. But those guys can essentially run wide open all the way around.
You know, and it's kind of the whole gamut because it starts with the quarter midgets, goes up to the go-karts, the 600s, into the midgets. And the neat thing about the midgets, when Tony designed this, Tony Barhorst, we're talking about the Rumble in Fort Wayne, he combined the national midgets, the focus midgets, and the Canyon midgets. So you can be running out there against 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And does that give you any fears or
I'm not going to say fears, but there's racing indoors is totally different than racing outdoors. The strategies, the things that you do, it's a lot more physical. Just driving the car is more physical indoors because of the rubber that's laid down. B, you have to be more physical with your competition. I mean, you're gonna bump into people. You're gonna get hit from behind.
Definitely a contact.
You're gonna get hit from behind, and it's gonna knock you into the guy in front of you. But and sometimes just a little tap like that, when a guy's car is tight, will get him to bicycle, and he has to steer out to get the car back under him, and that opens up the lane. So just knowing a lot of little tricks. There's a lot that you would never do outside that you do indoors. So the racing's different, and when you get some of these 14-year-olds, they're learning how to drive, and you have to keep in mind and kind of have a mental checklist of who is it that you're catching, and do you know them? Do you know their driving style? Do you not know them? What do you do? So that's the fun part, is just trying to figure out the guys that you don't know, and what do you have to do to get around them and race next to them.
For those of you who just joined us, this is the Rumble Mumble, and normally a 22-minute show, but tonight we're very honored to have Tony Stewart with us, and so we're going to extend it just a little bit longer here. Don't forget the Rumble coming up December 27th and 28th at the War Memorial Coliseum and Expo Center in Fort Wayne. Tickets go on sale November 11th through Ticketmaster or the Coliseum box office, and the good news is no increase in pricing. So start making your plans for the holiday getaway. As Tony said, it's a reunion, and it's more than a race, it's an event.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what a lot of promoters miss out on, is that, they open their tracks and they hold races, but that's what makes Fort Wayne unique. And that weekend is, like I said, we all go, the different hotels we all stay at, but there's one in particular that, everybody kind of congregates around, and we all have a good time.
Kyle, anything burning on your mind here?
Yeah, kind of keeping on the theme with like go-karts and the younger kids going in. Obviously, you got your start in go-karts. Do you have any advice for like maybe some of the younger kids, all the quarter midget racers, or even some of the younger midget drivers going in there for the first time?
Man, it is go-kart racing has evolved and changed so much since I ran. I mean, we on dirt tracks, we ran dirt tires. We ran a treaded dirt tire. And right at the end of my career in go-karts, we started running a couple tracks where we actually could run a slick tire and make it work. But nowadays that's what all the go-kart tracks are, hard pack tracks. They run a really wide wheel, a much wider wheel than the tire tread is. And the setups on them, I mean, it is incredible how detailed the setups are and what you have to do to get them to work. And then tires and tire prep and all the things you have to do to be competitive. I mean, you literally have to have more tires for a go-kart to run one go-kart than what we would have to run a sprint car for a whole weekend. And you'd have to have all those to run one night on go-karts. So you don't run them all, but you have to have those options, and it's different tire prep for different tracks and different options. But for someone that thinks just a go-kart is just a go-kart, it's not just a go-kart anymore. I mean, you have to know how to set them up. There's so much engineering involved in them that go-kart racing has really evolved since I got out of it.
We touched briefly on Rico. We started going there, and then we broke off at a different angle. So last year, or 2 years ago, Rico came as your guest, and he was bit. The bug caught him. And so You got him into a munchkin last year, and I guess we don't need to remind you, but it was a horrible year. Neither one of you, I don't think, completed 5 laps the whole weekend.
I ran the first night, and I think I got in a crash the first night.
Okay.
But Rico's car, we had problems, and I literally bought the car, and it got delivered just like when I bought Fedorchuk's car.
Okay.
It got delivered to Fort Wayne, so we didn't have a chance to go through all of it, and had a driveline problem, and we didn't. None of the 3 cars were the same driveline wise, so we didn't have parts that could from either of Mike's car was different than my car, and Rico's car was different than both of them, so we didn't have any spare parts to fix his car. So what we're doing this year, I took all 3 of the cars, put them in my trailer, brought all 3 of them back to TSR in Brownsburg, and Brad Mariscotti, that used to run the USAC program for us, and then went to Donnie Schatz's team. Brad is taken a different job, and he's a man wife, I call him now, because he does all the chores and cooking and all this stuff at home. But he's essentially taken all 3 of these cars, and I said make them as much the same as you can, drive lines, everything, to where
so you can swap parts if needed.
Exactly. And so that's what we're in the process of now. I broke a gear in the motor that put us out for the second night, and but the crazy thing, and I didn't even think about it even being remotely a reality, was Rico went to Mike's shop to sit in the car the first time and figure out what we needed to fit him in the car. And ironically, they didn't have to do anything. They just put his seat in there, and the pedals were fine. You sit really low in that car, and your legs are bent a lot. So feet wise and leg wise, it fit him perfect. So they literally didn't have to do anything but just mount a seat in the car. So it just amazed me that he fit in that thing that easily.
So this year we will see Rico back along with yourself?
That's the plan. Is Rico's going to run, I'll run, and then Mike's going to run.
And what's awesome is we got Cody Swanson, the multi-time Silver Crown champion, Kyle Hamilton, winner of the Little 500. Dave Darlin usually tries to make an appearance. There's a lot of names up there, and I think the kids really look forward to running against you guys. Again, that's a Rumble in Fort Wayne coming up December 27th and 28th. Any closing comments? If there was one thing you could change about the Rumble, what do you think it would be?
I don't know. In the perfect world, I'd have 3 nights of racing if it were me, but I have that much fun. I think, and you and I've talked about actually inviting at some point, trying to get the Northeast TQs. Right. They race indoors at Niagara Falls. Right. They run Atlantic City, Trenton, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So, and I've seen them race one time, and it's amazing to watch those guys run. And I think it would be neat if we could somehow figure out how to get those guys to come down and run with us as well.
We just need more than 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, I know.
The Rumble is pretty much
so much
nonstop.
Stuff going on. That's one of those deals where even 30 hours is not going to be enough in a day to do everything we want to do.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Kyle, any closing questions or remarks?
No, I mean, just thank you for being here. Obviously, you have a pretty crazy schedule, so thank you for doing this. And, really looking forward to having you back. Hopefully having a little better year this year than last year. But, yeah, looking forward to this year. Well,
normally we don't have mechanical failures like that. And like I said, my car, we broke a gear in the motor that we couldn't fix. Mike had problems and Rico had problems. So all 3 of us had problems. I'm like, oh my gosh. But no, I'm glad you had me on tonight. It was, like I said, we've been wanting to bring the 3/4 midgets here to Little E and just see if it would even be remotely possible to run something on top of with the go-karts.
Well, the word is out that you were here, so I'm sure there was some video taken tonight, and it'll be on Facebook very shortly. So coming from Eldora Speedway, with us, the owner of Eldora Speedway, just an all-around great guy, and giving racers so many opportunities and done so much here for Eldora.
You must have your performance review coming up for you to say it's so many nice things all of a sudden.
Well, the secret's out on that too, I guess. But we were very, very thankful that you could make time to join us tonight. Next week, we're going to go to Noblesville, Indiana, and we'll be talking to Randy Burrow. And there's another guy that just has
that you won't have a 22-minute show. You'll have about an hour and 22-minute show because he won't shut up.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Actually, awesome. Randy was supposed to be tonight, and I said, well, Randy, you got upstarred by Tony Stewart. He says, Go figure.
Randy's awesome, and Randy has been bringing 2 midgets that, for outdoors you couldn't run anymore, and he's kept these 2 midgets going. And he's had Bobby Santos, he's had Billy Weiss drive these cars, and he really works hard and puts a lot of effort into it. And he's got 2 fantastic midgets that run at the Rumble, so he's a great car owner.
All right, we're looking forward to that next Thursday, 7/22, the Rumble Mumble. And again, thank you to Jason Deach. And get your tickets November 11th.